Okay, great. So I'm just going to do a little quick welcome, and then Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you to take over the presentation portion of this. But thank you everyone so much for joining. As you know, last year, LISC New York City combined with our Western New York office to form LISC New York statewide. And so what that means for a lot of our programs is now we're expanding across the state out of our two previous catchment areas. So one program that's happening with is AmeriCorps. And so we're really, really excited about this expansion. We have more slots this year than we had individually as our offices in the last 2 years. And so we're excited to sort of talk through this program more with you today and answer any questions that you have. So we're going to start with Sarah from LISC National. She's going to be going through an overview of the program. After that, Daysi Ball from the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers is going to share a little bit about their experience as an AmeriCorps host site. And then Sarah's going to take us through the details of the application process, as well as answer any questions. And so there's a lot to cover in an hour, but we're really excited to have you all here. So Sarah, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We're excited that you're joining us and potentially going to be AmeriCorps placement sites. So I'm going to talk a little bit about LISC for those of you not super familiar with LISC. I'm assuming most of you are, but just for those that maybe aren't, I'll talk briefly about LISC and what we do overall as an organization. Then I'll talk more specifically about AmeriCorps and some of the member benefits and what you can expect if you decide to apply for an AmeriCorps member. So you can go to the next slide. The next slide is good after that one. All right, so this is a little bit about how we operate at AmeriCorps at LISC. So we are in our 28th program year. So we've been operating an AmeriCorps program as one of our many national programs at LISC. Each year we place about 165 members in our classic program, which is the one that the New York State folks are going to be operating. And then we also have a secondary economic mobility program, which just launched last year. And so, but we're in our 28th year for this classic program. The way that we operate is we raise funds through the federal government, through the AmeriCorps agency to help supplement the member stipends, and then we require a match payment from the placement site that applies. And I'll talk a little bit more about details around that further in the presentation. So our partner site organizations, all of you, if you choose to apply, we believe that we try to do skill building through what we call alternative routes. And we are supporting capacity building for the individual as well as the partner side and the community through AmeriCorps. The member provides a direct service to the community with, of course, your supervision if you are the supervisor of the AmeriCorps member. And we strongly encourage sites to, if they do apply and the application's approved, to recruit AmeriCorps members from the communities in which your organization serves. We do have some AmeriCorps members who aren't from the communities that we serve, but most of our AmeriCorps members do live in the communities that they're serving. You can go to the next slide. All right, so for our LISC overview, I just want to talk briefly about what LISC does. So LISC is an investor, capacity builder, convener, and innovator. We raise funds from philanthropies, corporations, and financial firms, as well as government, as I just mentioned. We work with local partners such as yourself in providing grants, loans, equity, and technical assistance. And we do this by investing in businesses, jobs, schools, public spaces, safety, youth, affordable housing, all kinds of different things that make communities better. And again, AmeriCorps members are there to help serve and make the communities better that they're serving in. And in terms of our organization and what we've been doing, we've been around since 1979, and we have invested $24 billion and leveraged $69 million overall as an organization through our 38 local offices and rural programs. And then these highlights on the slide are the number of homes that we've invested in, so almost 500,000, as well as 74.4 million square feet of commercial space, which includes all of the listed types of commercial space that we invest in. and then just a little bit about our overall net assets of our organization. So we're a pretty big community development organization, CDFI technically, where we do the lending and the banking piece around investing in affordable housing and commercial space. All right, so the next slide is all about AmeriCorps and what does AmeriCorps do at LISC. So since starting the program 28 years ago, we have over 3,000 members that have been placed in over 100 cities across the United States. And so what they've done is they've contributed so when our members are in service, they put in their data each month about how many homes they're working on or how many community members they're engaging. And all of this data over the last 28 years, or since we've started collecting it, has aggregated into these large numbers of success for our members. And so you can see, I won't walk through every single bullet, but you can see that our members are contributing in a large way to the communities that they serve. Next slide. So the AmeriCorps placement site responsibilities. So what is it that you'll be doing if you do decide to apply and get an AmeriCorps member? So first, you're going to work with your local office to complete the application by the deadline. And I don't know, Christina or Kate, if you have shared that deadline already. Do you want to say what that is? Or is there no?
It's
okay.
February 28th.
Perfect. Thank you. So if your application is approved, you can begin member recruitment. All members must be recruited by mid-April. We're asking by April 16th. There's a little bit of wiggle room to give a couple more days beyond that, but all of our full-time 1,700-hour members and 900-hour members, which is essentially a part-time position if that's what you apply for, those people will need to be recruited and found by mid-April. And I'll talk a little bit more about the types of positions that we have on the next slide. But to continue on the site responsibilities, we are requiring that the site pays $15,000 or $9,000 in match, and that's $15,000 for the full-time member or $9,000 for a part-time member. And the stipend payment would go directly to a member if you decide to apply for a 450 or 300-hour member. That's a little bit different. It's even less than a part-time job. Typically, those are summer-only positions. And if people are interested in that, we can talk more about what those positions are. Both the member and site supervisor are required to attend a virtual onboarding, which happens in the month that the member starts. So I host one for supervisors and one for members, and they're each about 2 hours long. So that is a requirement for every supervisor and every member. You also would be ongoingly reviewing the member's goal attainment towards what you put in the application. So when you submit your application, which I'll walk through later, there's a goal section, and that's what your members will be working towards in their service. There's a number of goals that you can choose between. There's certain buckets of service types that we offer at LISC, and I can show those when we go through the application. Also reviewing and approving timesheets, as well as monthly reports, and inviting your members to special events, meetings, and trainings. We really view AmeriCorps service as an opportunity to engage and network with others in your organization, as well as community members and people within your community development network. So we encourage that as much as possible. Obviously, providing supervision and check-in points. We do require a midterm and final appraisal during a member's service. And then also we highly encourage direct service in person, if at all possible. If your site does have a hybrid environment where people are able to work from home some of the time, you would need to have a teleservice policy that's being followed. We also are actually in the process of creating one for our AmeriCorps members, but at this point in time, the AmeriCorps agency has kind of moved away from encouraging on remote or teleservice work, and is asking that for the most part members be in an office with their team on a daily basis, but there is some flexibility for hybrid remote work. And then lastly, if you do get your application approved and you go through that process while you're looking for a member candidate, usually once you notify the LISC staff who the candidate is, it takes a couple of weeks from that point to actually enroll them in service. And we only enroll members in service 2 days a month, which would be the 1st of the month or the 16th of the month. So that's important to remember because it does take time to actually get your member enrolled. And so our last enrollment date is May 1st. And then, so that's why we're asking that candidates be identified by mid-April. Next slide. So this is the member benefits. So this is just a quick highlight of what the member receives. So their stipend is $21,000 over the course of 11 months. If they're a full-time member, that's about 38 hours a week that they have to work to meet that 1,700-hour requirement. So members have to, you have to work with them to make sure that they're on track with their hours, because at the end of the service period, which is 11 months, if they have 1,650 hours, they will not get an education award. So they'll be forfeiting almost $6,500 if they don't complete 1,700 hours. So it's really important that they're meeting those hours over time and that you work with them on an hours plan to make sure that you factor in holidays, office closures, other things so that they're able to get that 1,700 hours. And again, that's right around 37, 38 hours a week, not factoring in office closures. So just want to highlight that because a lot of times members will get to the end of service and go, I'm short hours, what do I do? And we hone in on the beginning that you really need to be on track of it yourself and make sure that you're getting those hours in within that 11 months. And then there are benefits beyond the stipend and education award for a full-time member. They can actually be on our LISC health insurance and as well as a child care benefit if they have children under the age of 13. That is income, an income qualification that we don't do here at LISC. So if they are interested in child care benefit, that's through a separate agency, but we provide them information on how to apply for that. And then the other thing is we do have a national leadership conference, and this is often a highlight of many of our members' service. So we fly them down. This year we're going to Atlanta, May 22nd through May 25th. That is a requirement for full-time members to attend. So you have to factor that into their schedule. They would be gone from May 22nd to May 25th in Atlanta, Georgia at a conference with their peers from around the country, as well as LISC staff. We offer professional development training and speakers and panels and tours of Atlanta, all kinds of exciting, interesting things for them during that conference. And I'll just quickly go through the other position types. A 900-hour position obviously pays less. It's fewer hours over 11 months. It's $11,000 stipend. And they can go to the leadership conference if you as the host site pay for it. We don't have the budget to pay for 900, 450 or 300-hour members to attend, but we invite them if the host site is interested in paying for it for them to go to the conference. I think that's all I want to cover on that slide. All right, next slide is just briefly, I'm not going to go into the application because we're actually going to, I think, let Daysi talk more about her experience, but I will go into this slide around the application once she is done talking. So with that, I'll turn it over.
And I just would like to introduce Daysi Ball, who is the director of the Hope Center at the Buffalo Federation of Neighborhood Centers, and has been she and her organization have been a wonderful Buffalo partner for quite a while now, and she's had a number of AmeriCorps members. And so Daysi, I'm going to leave it to you to talk about your experience as a supervisor.
Good morning, everyone. My experience with the AmeriCorps program has been great. Kate has been absolutely awesome in helping us, build capacity through the AmeriCorps program. I've been a longtime supporter of you know, the term of service that AmeriCorps provides. I actually was a former AmeriCorps member and actually ran a VISTA program years ago. So with that being said, obviously for my agency, through the Hope Center, we do a lot of economic empowerment work and also supportive services for older adults. And so a lot of unique challenges, you know, came our way this last year in regards to being able to do that work. I originally started out with 2 AmeriCorps members. One ended the program, their complete term of service successfully. Another, due to medical reasons, did not. And because of that, we did feel we did feel, you know, the loss of that second member. I think a challenge as a supervisor, you know, with the program is recruitment has been tough in trying to onboard AmeriCorps members. You know, one of the things that I would like to see is, you know, a lot more coordinated effort for us to be able to build that pipeline for members in our, for potential members in our community, and having some creative discussions around that. I know my conversations with Kate have been very good, and we all acknowledge that there's more that needs to be done there. I literally just left the meeting, and I'm sorry guys, I'm in my car. I jumped out of one meeting to get on with you, and the conversation came up with another organization that's had an open AmeriCorps seat for about 2 months, 2-3 months that they're trying to fill. So I think that that's one of the challenges as supervisors, is that we definitely have a need, but we don't have the people and, you know, the human capital to be able to, you know, fill these vital roles. And so, you know, my hope would be, you know, especially as the organizations that apply for these positions, that maybe we come together and maybe do some brainstorming around that. But otherwise, in regards to the reporting and everything that you require, I think for some of our older adults that are members, it's a challenge, and we spend a lot of time going back through and assisting the individuals with completing the documentation. And then I'll be very candid, the report, or the monthly report, I think there's a lot that's still not captured to really reflect what we do and how we do it. And I think it could be more qualitative and maybe rethinking what some of that design looks like. But overall, you know, our experience has always been great. I'm thankful for the support. You know, I will promote AmeriCorps for as long as I'm around. And, you know, if there's anything else that I could do to enhance it, you know, I will definitely do that. Kate, I'm not sure if there was anything else you wanted me to say.
Well, I think, Daysi, if you could talk about Marlene and how she ended up, what she started out at Buffalo Federation, becoming the AmeriCorps member, and what she ended up with. I think that's also an important aspect, because it really did build the capacity of your organization.
It did. She actually, this is what was really interesting. So Marlene was an AmeriCorps member. She originally was a seasonal staff person working with our VITA income tax program. And the AmeriCorps opportunity came around, and we knew we needed to build capacity in that program around volunteer recruitment and retention. And so I knew going in that I was going to be applying for a position around that work. And it actually, it was just a great fit, because the budget line for the seasonal position was enough to cover a year term. So I was able to keep someone who normally would only be around 3 months and leverage it for an 11th month term of service. So for me, it was just a great bang for our buck. Aside from that, you know, this particular AmeriCorps member, you know, had a lot of workforce experience, had you know, worked with tax programs and things, you know, in the past. So it was just a natural fit to be able to have that individual be able to do the term of service and receive all of the other, you know, benefits that come with that. However, there definitely was some challenges, again, because when we're having older adults that are in the workforce, they may not be familiar with all the different aspects of the technologies that we use now, and, you know, may become overwhelmed by some of the reporting. So again, trying to find a balance, you know, is going to be important in regards to that. I know I've had conversations with other providers who had members that were older, that those were some of the challenges as well. But aside from that, once she completed her term of service, it gave us the time during her term of service to apply for and receive other funding to fund a position. So we have now hired her as a staff. So, you know, we're very happy, and that would not have happened if not for the AmeriCorps opportunity.
And as Daisy, I mean, I'll interject, as Daisy's pointed out, everyone thinks of AmeriCorps as a young person. And in this instance, it was somebody who is older. There are certain challenges that come with hiring somebody that's in an older population, and there's equal challenges in hiring somebody who is younger and not as seasoned. So what Marlene was able to do is to take a whole bunch of, you know, technology classes, and she is now going to be, as crazy as it sounds, she's going to be assisting our new AmeriCorps member and helping with those reports and the timesheets. And so she's going to be doing the teaching for the newest AmeriCorps member that's going to be going into the Hope Center.
Yeah, and the other part of it is that when we originally started with her, I had two. And so I had a complement with Marlene, who was an older AmeriCorps member, and then I had a relatively a new professional, a younger AmeriCorps member, and they complemented each other very well and worked together very well. So we were very sorry to lose our second member. But again, you know, I think that there was really some, you know, there was some creative staffing in terms of the recruitment around those two positions. And, you know, I would definitely revisit it again, because what they learned from each other, it brought a lot of value, you know, and so the young man left with some really great work experience, a lot of knowledge from Marlene that she was able to impart. But then on top of that, he was able to assist her with the computer knowledge, and other technologies. And I mean, there was great synergy there. So, you know, I think we can't rule in or rule out, you know, in regards to age or years in profession. And, you know, this was an opportunity for Marlene to try something different. And she really enjoyed the experience. And she talked all the time about all the professional developments that you provide. And again, she found a lot of value in that. And so I think the resources that are available through the program make a difference.
Does anyone, before I let Daysi go to her next meeting and out of her car, does anybody have any specific questions for her? We will have time to answer, you know, more general questions at the end, but if there's any specific supervisor questions that somebody would like to ask, they can either put it in the chat or they can come off mute and ask that question. All right, I will take silence as nobody's got questions. Daysi, thanks so much, and I'll be seeing you soon.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks. All right, I think, Christina, we're turning it back to Sarah.
Yep. All right. Great. Yeah, so I'm going to walk, I know I want to leave time for questions, and there were some other things I was going to talk a little bit about, like around recruitment of people, but we may want to table that for a later conversation, just given that we probably want to leave time for questions, but I will walk through the application quickly. Thank you for pulling that up. So a couple of things to know. If you are applying, you do have to have a SAM registration number. And what that means, if you're not familiar, is that you are cleared essentially to receive federal funds. And that's a requirement for all AmeriCorps placement sites, that they do have a SAM registration. A member cannot start until they have a SAM registration. So that's something important to note. We do have guidance we can provide on how to get that. It's free. It does take some time. So if you don't have that, that's something you probably want to start looking into if you are going to apply. If you don't have a SAM registration, the other option potentially is to use an organization that does, as a fiscal agent, essentially. It gets a little bit more complicated around the paperwork, but that there is an alternative if you don't have a SAM registration in terms of applying and we can provide those details. I would say maybe 3 to 4 organizations every year use a fiscal agent. And like I said, we place 165 members. So the vast majority have a SAM registration. And if you don't, you do have to find a fiscal agent that does. All right, so then the other big thing is we have certain prohibited activities that a member can never do, such as a voter registration drive or support a for-profit business. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones that come up. We do have a full listing, but I would say in terms of community development and AmeriCorps work, those are the 2 things that we get asked often if members can do. Members can't do anything around voter registration or anything political while they're on the clock doing their AmeriCorps service, and they can also not support a for-profit business entity. So where that comes into play sometimes is if someone wants a member to be doing commercial corridor development work or helping businesses promote their business, that's not allowable by the AmeriCorps agency. So I just wanted to highlight those 2 quick things before I walk into the application. All right, so going into the application on the first tab, partner information, it's pretty, so essentially there's 5 tabs you have to fill out, and that's your application. So this is just all about your organization. We use this information in sharing with our funders who we're working with in terms of the placement site types. We also ask how you're going to be paying your match. So you will have to pay it on a quarterly basis. You'll be billed. And then the question around, is your organization going to be using government funds as match? That is something that is not suggested. If you are considering using other government funds to pay your match for the placement site, you do have to have permission in writing from that agency that you're allowed to use other government funds to match our government funding source that we're providing in the member stipend. So that gets a little bit complicated. So we discourage using federal funds. But if you are, we'll talk to you about what that means. And then just basic questions around what your organization does. I think that's the only one that people have questions around usually. The second tab is partner policies. So here we're asking you, do you have all of these policies on file? There's a drop-down menu. You have to fill out basically the gray cells. So there's a drop-down menu for you to choose. Yes, I have this. No, I plan to develop, or no, I need LISC assistance to develop. So those are your options when being asked if you have these policies in place. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's what are you doing? And we want to know. And if you do have a policy in place already, we may ask you for a copy of that policy, but you don't have to submit it with your application. We just know that you have it on file, and we may ask for it if we need it. So that's essentially each of these policies asks the same questions, and you just select from the drop-down menu. Partner need, member activities, and goal tabs. Those are the ones where you're going to have to do the most writing. So here in partner need, we're asking you a series of questions about how the service is aligned with your organization and meeting a need for your organization. Again, no wrong or right answers, just how are you thinking about using this person or this position to help your work? We are asking you how you're going to be recruiting. So as you heard from Daysi, recruitment can be very challenging. So what is it that you're going to be doing as an organization to try and find someone? We do have recruitment resources, and I don't think I'm going to have time to share them today. There's nothing brilliant or, there's no one answer. We just have a series of things that people do or have done to find members that we share with you essentially. But there's no silver bullet. It really is very challenging in the times that we're living in to not only recruit employees full time, but also AmeriCorps members. So certainly leaning on partners like Daysi and those that have found members in the past and asking them how they've done it is a great idea, I think, in getting their expertise around that. Then we're going to ask you who the supervisor is and how you're going to be supervising them, what you're going to be doing, and how you're investing in member training. As Daysi also shared, beyond our conference, we do a lot of professional development training that we ask members to attend. It's all virtual. There are lots of different topics that we cover, from helping them think about what's next after service. We call it's a Life After AmeriCorps series of trainings where we talk about applying for jobs and networking and interviewing. And that's just one set of examples of some of the professional development training that we provide. And members do seem to really get a lot out of it. And it's also something that's unique to, I think, our LISC AmeriCorps program. Not all AmeriCorps programs provide as much professional development that we do. And then this last, I think this is the last, one of the last questions on this tab. Describe how the AmeriCorps position is not displacing a staff person. So we're just asking, is the proposed position one that has been previously filled by an employee? If yes, how long ago? Is there another person at the organization that does similar work? And then talk a little bit more about what that is. So essentially, AmeriCorps cannot be displacement of a current or recent employee. So that is why we're asking that question. It's, again, another AmeriCorps agency rule. You can't displace staff to hire an AmeriCorps member. And that's it for that tab. So this inspiration tab is nothing to fill out. It's just ideas for you as you're thinking about what you're going to put in the member activity and goals tab. So in the member activities tab, that's where we ask you, what is this person doing? What is their title? So we list on this inspiration tab all the possible titles that you might want to pick from. You, of course, can choose your own as well, but this is just to kind of give you some guidance. And then we also list out the different types of activities that you may want to pick from as well. So there's a lot of information on this tab. The example of member activities tab is at the top. So we have essentially three gold buckets you can choose from in your application for what the member does. And then we provide all these potential activities, but you can also add your own as well. It's just if you pick from this list, it's going to be much more likely that your application gets approved quickly. That's what I'll say. Because if you start putting in your other activities, they may or may not get approved, or we may have questions around them. So if you're picking from this list, you're going to be pretty good to go. So once you get to the member activities tab, we ask you, the name of your organization, what title you want the member to have, and then you literally just list in row 11 and below which activities you want your member to perform. And then scroll down to row 38, and we're just asking what is the time that they'll be in the office. So pretty easy tab to fill out. Then you get to your member goals tab. So that's where you decide what your members specifically, what their goals are going to be. And we have, I think we have 3 tabs total to pick from. So you don't want to pick all the goals. In fact, we encourage you to pick 1 or 2 max goals, because once you get beyond that, it can be a little bit challenging sometimes for members to meet everything that you're hoping they meet. So typically we suggest that you pick 1 or 2. So on this first member goal tab 5A, you can choose from goal 1, which is employment services, job training, or financial coaching. So that's just 2 buckets that you could choose from for a goal. You have to fill out the gray cells. So you'll need to list how many clients that your member is going to be serving, and then so that's the output, and the outcome being number of clients who will secure employment if they're doing employment coaching, or number of clients with improved financial knowledge would be the outcome for a financial coaching. Now, if you are measuring other things individually as an organization, that's fine, but we just ask that you fill out what we're tracking. So when Daysi talked about the reporting structure, we do have a narrative question for the member in every report that says essentially, tell us what you did for the month. So that's their opportunity to expand upon what they've done beyond their goals. But then we specifically have the members have to submit how many clients did you meet with, if in fact they're doing these 2 goals. So we know the members are doing more than just what's in their goals, but this is what LISC AmeriCorps is tracking. So then they fill out the tool. Is a drop-down menu, how are they measuring, and the dosage, so how many hours are they meeting with the clients in this case for the output and the outcome. So literally it's just picking from the gray cells. 5B, that member goal tab is all about housing. So if you are interested in your member doing housing related work, again, similarly, you would fill out the gray cells and essentially let us know the clients they're working with, for example, if they're doing housing counseling, or the number of units serviced if they're working on housing development. So I'm not going to spend great amount of detailed time going through each cell and what you need to select, but all the gray cells need to be filled out. And then if you have questions, you can certainly reach out to our staff and ask if you're not sure exactly what to put in there. Then the last tab is 5C, member goal tab. And that one is for any organization that wants their member to engage in community engagement activities. So that could be event planning, hosting meetings. It could be doing a community assessment. So you can see goal 6 is community assessment. Any kind of assessment. It could be a community planning process that they're doing. And this goal 6 is actually one where we don't have specific numbers that need to be put into the gray cells. They're just listing, if, for example, they're going to be measuring whether or not you'll be measuring if your organization is more efficient and effective because of the member service. And then there's other options that you can choose from that the member might work on under this goal in the gray cells. And then the last possible goal you could choose from is goal 7. This is really one for members who are going to be doing community engagement related activities. And you can see if you scroll down the gray cells, this is where you do need to put in numbers. How many volunteers will the member be working with? So we count a volunteer as someone who's either attending a community event or a community meeting. And so you'll see the questions are laid out there. How many events, and then how many meetings, and how many volunteers at each. So we know that, it may not be spot on. You may not know exactly ahead of time how many people your member will be working with, but this is really an estimate, and we suggest that you underestimate as opposed to overestimating. So it's not hard for your member to meet the goals that you have laid out for them in the application. And that is pretty much the entire application. I think there's a couple of extra tabs with definitions and things to help you out. But that's it for the application. So I think that's probably where we want to stop. I have other stuff I can share about like the enrollment process and recruitment, but since we're talking applications and we want time for questions, this is probably a good point to stop.
One of the things I would say when it comes to the application is you can see how many folks are actually joining us, and they're all across the state. That being said, we are hoping to have our AmeriCorps reach statewide. Obviously, the two areas that we've have been primarily involved in are the Western New York region and the New York City region. But we also want to give those who are in other parts of the state an opportunity to host AmeriCorps, so that the LISC New York mission is, from the AmeriCorps perspective, is fulfilled. So this is a competitive application process. We ask is that you fill out that application completely and very specifically. Christina and I are here to answer questions if you're running into trouble while filling out the application. But as I said, it is a competitive process, and what you're planning on doing is going to end up being ranked against others. So the more complete your application, the more competitive you are. We are going to give credit for those who are located in different parts of the state. That's going to be a piece of it. And we're also going to be looking to see what types of work you're asking members to do. Right now, I believe we have 14 slots that are open, and we'll be ranking those. The one thing I would say that would put your application in a more competitive position is if you already have somebody that you have identified as a candidate, that you may be able to fill that slot. And the reason for that is if you already have somebody that you've self-identified, that you've talked to about the AmeriCorps program, and and we can bring them on, that makes you more competitive, because it means that not only can you accept the slot, but you also have a person to fill it. So if that's the case, and what I would recommend from a recruitment perspective is, if there is somebody who has been volunteering with your organization for a while, and remember, it's anyone over the age of 17, you can have that volunteer become an AmeriCorps member. So when you send the application in, let us know that you have identified somebody, and have somebody who is interested in filling that slot. We will schedule a time to talk to them, because we always want to make sure that they understand the program, and that they are not an employee of the organization, and they are not an employee of LISC, but they are there to do service. I will say the Western New York team has had a lot of success in recruiting older adults. That AmeriCorps Education Award can be passed down to children, if you're over the age of 55, to children or grandchildren, stepchildren, foster children. So there's an opportunity to do that. And then the other thing that folks should know, because $21,000 for a full-time position is not a lot of money, even throwing in, childcare or healthcare, is that the stipend that they are receiving is exempt under the law for social services such as SNAP. So a member can still continue to receive SNAP benefits while earning this $21,000, which can make a huge difference in being able to recruit somebody. And it also, I will tell you, depending on where you are, and depending on if somebody is I have a member right now that's going to be onboarded, and he receives Social Security. And someone's like, really? I'm like, yeah, he's receiving Social Security, but he is eligible to earn up to a certain amount of money per month, and it's not going to affect his Social Security. So that's a conversation Christina and I can also have with you if that's a concern, and we can help you figure that out. So I'd like to open it up for questions, if anyone has anything specific. Leah?
Hi.
Hi.
I like your Buffalo skyline behind you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you recognized it.
Yeah, I'm originally from Buffalo.
Well, it was funny when you started to talk. I'm like, she kind of has
Hi.
She's kind of, yeah, she's got that Western New York accent.
I do. Okay, so a couple questions. So for the full-time AmeriCorps volunteer, what do they receive at the end as total compensation? That $21K plus our 15?
No, they receive $21,000, and the way that it is, over the 11 months, they get paid twice a month. Once on the 15th, once on the last day of the month, and it's split evenly over that time.
Okay. Is
so
that even minimum wage?
I do not believe it's minimum wage, but if you add the health insurance, the child care, and the education award, and the fact that they can still receive SNAP, it brings them up.
So what you're saying is the target would be somebody for whom those benefits would be useful, such as somebody maybe transitioning into the workforce that has these responsibilities.
Or somebody who's retired that really likes your organization, that has done work, and maybe has a grandchild that they could pass that education award on to.
Okay.
Somebody who's in their 30s who maybe has children, has maybe been working in retail or as a restaurant, or somebody who hasn't had a lot of experience in the nonprofit world but wants to have a foot in, it's a way to enter in. It's a way for the organization to see how they work, and it's and how they can do their service. And especially if somebody an organization knows that they're going to have funding, but they may not have funding for a year, but they're gearing up for funding for a full-time position. This allows them, if they have that match at a lower level, to bring somebody in, test them out, get them up to speed so that when that position opens, they may be able to say, we've got somebody and we can grab them and move them right into a position. So
I can see why it's hard. Recruitment's difficult.
especially right now, like if we were in a recession, we would have people
Mhm.
coming out of the
Totally.
woodwork, right?
Totally.
But we're not. And so it's what I always say for recruitment, and I say this especially for my housing entities, if you have partners that you know that there is an actual population that you can reach, you should be letting your partners know that you're recruiting, putting things up in your housing units, putting things up at community centers, libraries, churches, in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you know somebody who's doing youth services, you put that information out so that it's out there to let the world know that you are recruiting for an AmeriCorps and would prefer somebody from the community to serve the community.
Mhm.
I've worked with colleges, high schools. We send our information out far and wide.
Right on. Thank
And the
you
other
very
thing
much.
is if you do have somebody who's in college, I would rather have that conversation one-on-one with you to see how we can help you recruit. For instance, somebody who's in college who might be like, I don't know how this would work with going to college full-time or taking classes and also doing an AmeriCorps. But that's something that Christina and I could work with you on as well.
Right on. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Emily?
Hi, thanks. I had a few different questions. Can an organization apply for more than one AmeriCorps member?
They can. We have had organizations that have applied for more than one. Yes.
But in terms of the competition, do you sort of discourage that? Did you say it's just 14 total that you have for New York State?
Yeah, but there's a possibility if, like, for instance, another AmeriCorps office because we have, I always forget, we have like 38 offices in 32 states, only some of which have AmeriCorps. So it is possible. It is possible to if somebody doesn't fill their position, that we could grab a position if we had an overwhelming amount. So.
Okay. And so if like we applied for more than one, but we were just awarded one, you would let us know like which of the ones we applied for we were awarded.
I would actually say, I would say to you, if you had applied for two and they were totally different and we were like, you're going to get one, I would want to give you the flexibility to figure out which one you would want.
That's helpful. And then I believe in the past in New York City, LISC had a relationship with CUNY and did some recruitment that way. Is that going to happen again this year?
Yep, it's already been done.
Great.
We started trying to recruit folks before we had all of your applications in, because there have been some organizations that when we did the first call for applications, sent them in. So both in the Western New York office and in New York City. So there are some people that have sent their applications in. So we had already started recruiting and have already started meeting with potential candidates in both, I will just say both the New York City and the Western New York markets.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Christina, do you see anybody else's hands up?
No, there's no more hands. There were a couple questions in the chat, but Sarah was answering those.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, maybe we can give you guys all back some time. I would just say this, in terms of the role that LISC, the local offices play, which would be the Christina and the Kates in this space, we sort of look at ourselves as a bridge between you and the member. And just like all human resources, human resources is great until it's not. So I always say to folks, if you're struggling with a member, like if you get a member that's placed with you and you're having some issues, Christina and I and our colleague Talor, who's not on the call today, we're the people that you're going to want to talk to say, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what is the problem. And the member is also we're again, if the member's having trouble with you, we're there as a resource to the member to try to teach and coach and get a resolution. What we don't want to happen is we don't want this to be a bad experience for you. We don't want this to be a bad experience for the member, but we want to partner with you to make it a good service experience where the member learns, gets educated in the nonprofit world, gains some both life skills and professional skills, but your organization has a benefit of that service. And there is an impact for your community partners, and for your organization in a positive way. We are not here, and I have run the AmeriCorps program in the Western New York office for the last 2.5, 3 years. And I will say I'm, as Daisy said, I am constantly in contact with my supervisors and my members to make sure that that experience is good. And we try to nip problems in the bud so that we're not waiting 11 months for somebody to say to me, that was the worst thing ever, or even if it was the best thing ever. We want to make sure that you all, that we have a dialogue and that we continue to partner. All right, I think February 28th again. We encourage the earlier the submission as possible. I thank Sarah, for going over the application on behalf of Christina and I, and both of the New York State office. I would just say, if you have any trouble, if you have any trouble filling out the application, please reach out to either one of us. If we don't make this round, it says, do you know when the next application deadline will be? Sarah? Is it probably going to be late fall?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably, it'll probably be late fall, December even. It's definitely another 6 months at least beyond February 28th for our new, because that would be our new program year. Yeah.
Yep. And so we will once again do this in the fall to let everybody know that the application's coming and what that looks like. But that I would just say, if you don't make it this time, at least you'll understand what the program is, and what you need to do in order to get an AmeriCorps member. Anybody else? All right. Well, Christina and Sarah, thank you again for joining me and presenting our AmeriCorps New York segment. And we look forward to all of your applications. I would just say again, we will follow this up. We'll be able to send out the webinar for you all to have, just so that you have that as a PDF, so you can look through it. And Christina and I will also send our information and Talor's information. And as long as you send one of us the application, it'll be sufficient. You don't have to send it to all three of us, but just pick one, because we all work together on the program. All right. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.